Okay, good morning, everybody. This is November, where did my sheet go? November 5th. I even had to refer to my notes. This is part 3 of the 3-part expert series for the desktop version. Happy to have you on the call today. Unlike prior sessions, there is no PowerPoint. Ian's just going to do a recap and really open things up for questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out through the chat room. I'm Steve Schillig, the moderator, director of the SBDC. If you know anybody that's on desktop and that is considering or interested in converting to the online version, Intuit is offering 1 month free and 50% off for the following 12 months to any SBDC client. And as I mentioned before, being an SBDC client is no obligation. It's just completing a form and getting in place with the SBDC. So consider that if you're looking to convert to the online version. We have muted everybody. We're monitoring the chat room for questions, so feel free to send your questions through there. Very pleased to have on the call today Ann Sharp. She's the founder of Excellent Admin, finished both bachelor's and master's degree from Walsh University, worked in the accounting field for over 10 years, been teaching QuickBooks for 4 years, and her specialty is small business. And as I mentioned before, very happy to have her as part of the SBDC team. So that means she's available to you on a one-on-one basis if your question doesn't get answered today or you have additional questions down the road. This session is being recorded and it will be on our website probably in the next week or two. So if you want to refer back to it for any reasons, please feel free to do that. And at this point, I'd be pleased to turn it over to Ann.
Perfect. Good morning, guys. So today we're going to go through everything we've covered in the beginning course and the expert course. We're going to actually do it for a client that I am in the process of onboarding. So you're going to get to see what some mass entries look like. But we're going to go through every step that we've covered, obviously just as a big cap review. And then if you have any questions as we're going through this, stop me, make sure that we can answer them while we're doing that activity. So let me go ahead and get our screens here situated. Okay, so we're going to start from square one here, which is going to be actually creating a QuickBooks account. Okay, flip everything over here. Perfect. So on here, we have our setup wizard. So we're going to go ahead and do start setup because we're doing somebody totally new. And it wants me to go ahead and it's going to have me log into my Intuit account. If you've, like I've told you guys before, once you've purchased the software, you should have an Intuit account. If for some reason you don't, you can create one. It gives you the ability down here to create an account. I have one, so I don't need to create one. And then it's going to have us fill everything in. So I have their bank statement in front of me, so I'm going to follow everything to the T. So we'll go ahead and hit create. And it's creating my company file right now, which is going to bring in all the generic, names of accounts, some of the most common expenses that you would have. So then it's going to tell me I'm all set, and I can click Start Working. And then now we're into our QuickBooks file here. So I went ahead and did some downloading, but I do want to go ahead and set some of the framework here. So if I click into here, I'm going to go up here to create a new account because none of my bank accounts are in here yet. So he has. I'm going to hit Save and New, and then I have a credit card as well. And I can hit Save and Close. And I don't want to set up the bank feed from here, but what I do want to do is I did download it here, as you can see. So we'll go ahead and click on the first one. We want to import new transactions. I'm going to use an existing account because I did create it. And I'm going to go back over to my web, and I'm going to click this other one that I did import or download as well, so that it automatically imports. And because it was for the same account, it didn't ask me to select an account. He had too long of a time span we were trying to work with to be able to do it in one download, so I did it in two. That's usually a trap that the bank has based on how many transactions at a time you can download. And then we still have one more download to do. So I'm going to go up here to File, and I'm going to do Utilities, and I'm going to manually import this one, which is a Web Connect file. This is the other way we put the data in here. And I'll go into my downloads, and it'll be this one here. And it's for the credit card. So I'll use the existing account because I created it, and I'll hit Continue. It tells me it was done successfully. So now I've got my transactions listed here. So we're not going to go through all of these, obviously, for training purposes, but I am going to go through and flip all these to be dated earlier in the year for me. So it tells me that he had a transfer from a savings account, and I have his bank statement in front of me. And so we didn't obviously import a savings account. So we're going to do savings, and we're going to put the last four of this one in here. And I'm going to add an account from here and make sure that it's a bank account. So now I have that added in. And then he did another one in February from the savings. Same one. So I'm going to go ahead and see how these two are checked. I'm going to go and bulk add these. So January, they weren't quite open yet. This is what that tells me with the little bit of transactions we had. So I'm going to flip to make sure we do some more categorization here. So I did check that the savings account for the transfer that we did was the same savings account. So we did put that in there properly. And then you can see that he has some deposits coming in from the Meadowlark, which is where he gets the income from. So we will want to create Meadowlark here. And they're going to be a customer. And then down here, let's look at what our income account is. So we have gross trucking income that will work for what we're trying to accomplish for him. So I'll go ahead and put that one in. And then I notice if I look down a little bit here, we have another Meadowlark. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one because those are the same. Makes that easy. And then I can add these two here. It's telling me they're past 90 days because these are from February, so no big deal. And then it's going to try to create a rule. So it says if it contains Meadowlark and the payee is Meadowlark, you want it to go into trucking income. The answer is yes. So now you'll see up here that we had 25 transactions for other months that are Meadowlark that are trucking that we can add and approve because that's exactly what they are. So in 2 clicks, we've eliminated 30 transactions, by doing it that way. Then we have the lease payment here. So the lease payment is that they have some trucks. So the trucks that they have are 2016 internationals. Okay. So we want to call these 2016 internationals, and they're going to become a vendor. And these are going to go to a truck loan account, which we haven't set up yet. The truck loan is not going to be an expense. It's going to be a long-term liability. So these are payments towards the loan. He gave me separately a loan total, which we'll put in loans after we get through some of the categorization here. You have Shell. Shell is obviously at $4.20, probably not fuel for a truck. That's probably a cup of coffee. So we can put Shell in here. And then we're going to change this to meals and entertainment, which obviously is one of the generic accounts. And then we have another Shell here. And this one can be meals and entertainment as well. And another Shell. And again, this one's going to be meals and entertainment. So then we have a Walmart. So we're going to add Walmart. So Walmart can be a variety of things. It could be grocery bills. It could be office supplies. It could be trees. Truckers obviously live in their trucks. So there's quite a variety here. So for the sake of training purposes, we're going to go ahead and put this in travel expense and chop it up to it could be some of it could be toiletries, some of it's probably a little bit of office expense, and some of it's probably a little bit of food just to have some snacks on the road. So if we put it into travel, it at least accommodates 2 of the 3. So we want to do that. Then you can see that he's got some transfers going between some of the accounts. So he has some owners some owners pay that he's doing. So we're going to do all these under members draw, which is an equity account. You can also call it owner's draw. We can use this one here and it'll be just fine for members for these 3. And I can see on the bank statement the full account number, and he gave me a list of which accounts were considered personal accounts. And that's how I know that these are owner's draws. And then we've got Shell again. And again, this is meals and entertainment. So this Texas Best. So I don't exactly know what Texas Best is. So I'm going to go over here to Google and see what it tells me. So it looks like the top one is the truck, auto and truck sales. There's a meal restaurant. There's another restaurant. So I would say let's look at the amount here. And how much is it for? $24. This would look more like a meal, not repair and maintenance. So if you look over here at our dates, so this would be everything to finish out the month of February. So I want to go ahead and click add and approve. It's going to give me a bunch of rules now. We do not want to categorize the shell. So you want to ignore the rule. The reason for that is if we categorize that, it will take every shell transaction and make it meals and entertainment. And what if shell ends up being, $140, which is probably more realistic to adding in fuel for your truck. So if you've got that, then obviously you want to make sure that it doesn't go into meals and entertainment. You want to make sure that it stays in your fuel expense. So we've now done 2 months worth of categorizing here. So I'm going to go out of this screen here and click out of this screen here. And then let's go up here to our Bank of America. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click it and I'm going to click Reconcile. And then obviously it's dating because we just created the account today, but I'm going to go back to my original statement date, which is 1/31/2020. And then my ending balance here. And my beginning balance was 0, so that is correct. So I can hit continue. I know I'm doing something in the past. I can click this box here and only show the transactions that show within the date of the actual reconciliation report. So I'm going to click this. I look down, my beginning balance still matches, my deposit matches my deposit numbers. I have no service charges at this point, and my difference down here, like we said, has to be 0. So I can click Reconcile. I'll want the summary report. So that's going to print on my printer, and then I will staple that to the bank statement here that I have in front of me. That way I have record that this was completed. If something were to ever happen to the file and it were to be compromised, you've got your hard copy to go back and look at it, because it obviously notes any changes or things that would still be sitting in the in QuickBooks that had not cleared. So then we're going to do this again for the month of February. So checking, my ending date was the 29th. That's correct. My beginning balance of 110 is correct. My ending balance, I know it's 90 days in the past. And then we could click that box again that gets rid of everything that's not within the time frame, but the only thing that would disappear is going to be income. So you'll see that your deposits go away, so it's just not as much to look at. So I have 3 deposits here. Those are the 3 I have. This amount down here matches my total amount on my bank statement. Then I've got my truck payment. I've got my owner's draws. I have my shell here. I've got my other one. Another shell. 10. And then these 3. And again, at the bottom, it's zeroed. So I can click Reconcile now. Again, I would print the summary. You don't need the detail. You can just do the summary. You don't have to print it at all if you don't want to, but you only can pull the reconciliation report for the previous month unless you have an accountant's version of QuickBooks, which you guys probably don't have. Only accountants usually have that. So I just want to make sure you don't lose that history if you ever needed it. And the way you can pull that is if you up here to reports and you go into accounting, and then you can look here. You've got some other things here that you can print, and flipping into another one here, you would be able to pull the reconciliation from a previous month. Okay, so you have that. So that's the bank account. You got it all in. We got it 2 months reconciled. So now we'll go back out of here and go into our credit card. And we'll go into our download charges so we can get back over here. So the credit card only has 30 transactions. Just want to make sure that it's filtered by date here. So you can see on 1/28 it got a payment. So I'm looking here right now. Or on 2/28 it got a payment. So I'm looking here right now to see, and it actually looks like one of the payments from the bank account went over here. So what I'll do is I need to go out of this screen. And this is why we reconcile and double check things, and go back over here. Let me make this bigger for us. And if we scroll up, this one here, this went to the card, not the checking account. And so see how it says CHK or it says CRD. So this is not an owner's draw. This actually needs to go to the Bank of America credit card. And it allowed me to make that change. Now I'll go back over here to credit card. Get into our downloaded transactions. And now you should see one auto transaction. So it recognized that I moved that transaction and that it matched date and amount to be the payment for the credit card. So I want to add and approve. We'll click back over here. So it looks like almost all of these are just payments. So we can take all of these and say that they came from the Bank of America checking account. You don't have to put a payee in when you're making a payment on the bill. The payee obviously would be Bank of America, because that's who's the credit card holder. I'm skipping these two because it says checking 4 and checking 2. The rest of them are checking 1. That tells me that it might be coming from a different account, and I just want to make sure we check it before we just add it in. And then you have a finance charge here. So this would be interest expense. Then you can see there was an adjustment, so it goes back into interest expense. And then we have a promo credit, so we'll have to decide what we want to do with that, but I'm going to go ahead and add these in. So this should leave just a few transactions left for the credit card. So a promo credit is like cash back in the credit card world. So you can create an account that says cash back or interest earns or rebates earned, however you want to do it. I always throw these into equity. They're not income that you get. Like, you don't get a statement from the bank account that says that you got $300 in instant cash back. If you're using points like on an American Express card to pay your bill, those are points that you could use for personal use. And so they're, again, not income. They don't take away the expense that you incurred. So you do want to just have like a cash back account that goes into equity, because that's you using a benefit that you have from a vendor of your choice to give you that. Okay. So I'll go ahead and enter that one. And then I'm going to click out of that and I'm going to click back over here and click into our transaction list. And all those ones that we moved matched inside of here. So we can add these ones very quickly, which again takes our list down immensely on some of the transactions there, because the accounts are talking to each other. So when you make a transfer on the physical bank account online, it doesn't talk to QuickBooks, but you have to do the same type of transaction inside of QuickBooks, which is transferring the funds, as you would have to do if you were doing it on online banking. That way you keep your accounting accurate. Okay. So now we've got the credit card, looks a little crazy right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to reconcile the credit card. And I'm going to flip this over to this screen for me. And it's loading back up because I got clicked out of it. So let's look at some of our statements here. So on this statement here, which would have went from January 27th to February 8th. So our ending date here is going to be February 8th. It says that it had an ending balance of 34.95. And if I hide all of this, I don't show any transactions on this account for this. So then I go back into the banking here, because now we're playing investigation. So let's look. I'm going to pull up that bank statement. So it said he had no transactions to display, but it does look like on side of here that he has a sub account of this credit card. And so let me see if, and it has the same statement. So it's on the same statement. And it looks like he had some charges here. So we're going to need to download this credit card as well. And let's do, and it's downloading for me now. So I'll go to File, please import Web Connect. So this card has a sub account and I can't sync it to the same account. So we're going to do Bank of America and I'm going to put the last 4 of this account number, which is this. I'm going to hit continue. And then what I need to do is the couple transactions on this one. It's this one. Sorry about that, guys. Is this account should become a sub account of the other account because they're the same bank statement. They're just 2 card users. And that way I can do a reconciliation of it. So I'm going to edit this account. I'm going to make it a sub account of the other credit card. So then when I reconcile, let me click in here. Let me categorize the transaction that we have for the month we're trying to reconcile. This DAT. And I'm going to Google, make sure that's not something specific. So this is a freight subscription in order for them to get the best loads and have some customer information. So this goes under dues and subscriptions. So I'll go ahead and add that one. It did change some of those for us. So I can add these guys real quick. So now if I click out of this and click out of here, and I go over to my chart of accounts here, I can right click my Bank of America and click Reconcile. And I can hide everything. And now my statement matches. I didn't have a previous balance. My ending balance is 34. You can see that I clicked the one transaction that plays into it. And then obviously you only have one transaction and the difference is 0. So I can click Reconcile now. So with credit cards, it wants to ask you if you want to make a bill to pay this. I always hit cancel. And then it'll give me the ability to print my reconciliation report. Okay. So be careful with that. If you decide to say yes, you want to pay that bill, it's going to set up a bill under your vendors, enter bills or pay bills, and you will be able to actually pay that bill there. And if you pay your credit card off every statement, that's totally fine. If you ever leave a rolling balance, obviously this is the way you're going to have it. And it's always going to default and ask you to pay the full amount that's due on the credit card, which sometimes we know as business owners is just not possible. Okay. So do we have any questions right now about, downloading or importing, and then obviously, categorizing from inside of that screen and then reconciling so far?
None so far.
Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go over to back up to the bank account. We're going to do some manual entry. Okay, so I'm going to click into here Now we downloaded, and I'm going to do some manual entry, and you're going to see kind of how they get to match together, because it's going to be pretty awesome that they get to do that. So I do want to make sure that I show everybody what's going on. So we're now in the month of March in the bank account. So I'm going to click this back to March, and the date I'm looking at is the 6th is our first transaction. So he took some money out, and I did check it. It says that CHK for owner's pay or members draw here. So I'm going to do that. It's going to tell me it's in the past. I know, no worries. Okay. So my date stayed in March. So I do have another transaction on the 6th as well. And I always keep a ruler, guys, when I know you don't see me looking down, but if you could see me now, you'd laugh. I keep a ruler with me to make sure that you can see that I obviously am following along. And then if I notice something is funky, I'm highlighting it, and that's kind of just my way of making it stand out. So he's got another one on the 6th. And then let's see here. We have one more on the 6th. So then we jump to the 13th. So that puts me at the 13th. And here's another owner's draw. So we did that one. We've got the lease payment. So this is the and this is for, and the date of this one is the 18th. So make sure I change this. And this is for truck loan. So you've entered some of those. So now if I click in here to where my downloaded transactions are, and I go into my bank account, which is this top one, you can see that of the ones I entered, they're matching. So we will want to do the 600, yes. The 1500, yes. 300, no. $1,000, yes. And then this truck one, yes. So we'll want to go ahead and add these. And now we don't have duplicate transactions. So if I go in back into the bank account here, and I go to Reconcile, and I'm going to just put $1 in so I can show you what it looks like based on the transactions we would have already had put in. And I hide it. Okay. So we have 4 deposits. There's 4 deposits here. They total exactly what it should total based on the bank statement. And then of the transactions that we put in, here's our 550, 600, 1500, 300. Here's our 1,000. Here's another 300. So we have 2. Here's our truck payment. Okay, so you can already see this one, which was one of the ones we put in, is a duplicate. And then obviously it had already put in the truck payment. So this one here is a duplicate. And you would double click on this, and we would click delete to get rid of the duplicate. But when you're going through your reconciliation, this is going to be how you're going to see some of this stuff. But you also can do this part first, which will keep you from entering them twice if you decide to manually enter things. Okay. So to delete that 300, I'm going to hit leave here, and I'm going to scroll up to this one here, and I'm going to right click it, and then you can delete it. And the reason I knew it was that one is it didn't have a star in it, and it didn't have a lightning bolt. The lightning bolt means it was downloaded, and the star means that it's selected in the reconciliation. And then once you reconcile, they have check marks. Okay, so that's how you can tell from inside your ledger what's actually still floating around. So that's how you do the manual entry. But then obviously if you've downloaded it and you've done some manual entry, you will see that it does auto correct and fix it. You'll also see that if you paid bills or checks, the checks will auto match in that when you download it. So you don't have to worry about any duplicate transactions that way. Okay. So that's the big main part of that. And getting all of this entered. So now we're going to flip over and we're going to do some journal entries. So if we go over to company, let's make a journal entry. So these guys had done some personal transactions on a personal credit card that they didn't necessarily mean to do when they were initially getting set up to do the business. So we need to put those in. And then they also bought some trucks. So we need to put the trucks in. And we're going to go ahead and do both of these things. So this, let's see here. These were done on October 1st. So he has some office supplies. And this, he gave me a memo, was office depot. So I'm going to do that. And then he has office supplies here for Amazon. And then we have his members account because he paid for it out of his personal account. And then we're going to also do in here, so we'll go ahead and hit save and new. And we're going to backdate these all the way back to January. And these are the trucks. So he has 3 trucks. And this is going to be a fixed asset because these are trucks. And he bought 3 trucks with the same year and the same company. So that's why you see me doing these by dashes to know which one. We do have to track that if he were to dispose of one. You can track these by VIN numbers and stuff, but you're still probably not going to do that. You'd probably write the VIN number in the description here. So then we have that, and then we have the truck loan, which is going to be the opposite side of it. So our total here is 106,806. And then let's do for purposes, we're going to keep it all even until they tell me that they've done it, what the individual truck amounts were. So now you can see it's balanced and we can hit save and close. Yes, I'm aware we're doing fixed assets. So now we would look, and we just always check to make sure that you do these properly. I tend to sometimes flip the things. I flipped one for training purposes so you can see it because we're always talking about how we do the transactions. So if we pull our profit and loss and we can look at all because we don't have anything any other way, you could see our office expense here is perfect. It's done the right way. It's got our 2 expenses in it, but it also put the charge here for you. So this, shows up properly. That one was good. We can mark that off that we entered it. No big deal. And then if we go over here to reports again, company financials, and let's look at our balance sheets. Our balance sheets, you can see here, we have a problem. We would not have negative fixed assets. So this would be the one that we flipped. And obviously our truck loan is super negative. So you would click into this and you can edit this transaction. And I wanted to show you guys what it looks like so that you know what to look for as you're learning to get comfortable in your QuickBooks and doing journal entries. So now if I click back over, I'm going to tell it to refresh. I've got my fixed assets and I've got my loan. Perfect. Okay. So the loan's still not absolutely 100% perfect. And the reason for that is that you can see here the full payments are going against the loan. And obviously, these payments need to be broken up for interest and principal. So that's going to be one of the things we'll have to look back at later. But you can see here how you've got your initial balances there. And again, you could mark that off of the information that the client gave you. And obviously, you're moving right along. These numbers should be coming from the paperwork when you purchase a vehicle or an asset. It should be the absolute bottom line number. So somebody asked me yesterday if it was what I paid for the vehicle and not the title fees and interest. No, you need to give me the total number for all of it. Okay. So make sure you don't slim yourself and not give yourself the full expense. Okay. So then we were entered in. You can see we're starting to have things on our balance sheet here, bank accounts. We've got credit cards. And you can see here that it will be a total balance here, which is off right now because we have all the payments put in. You got your truck loan here. Here's our cash back and our members draws. And if you click into here, you can see the money that he put in from personal usage of a credit card counteracts the money he took out, because it's going to go back. So you have that, you can see, but you're starting to build a balance sheet. And then as you saw before, we were starting to build a profit and loss based on income so far and the expenses. And you're building this based on what his expenses are in order to make sure that we show some of that stuff. Now, trucking's got some other curveballs in it. They get statements from the trucking companies that are called settlements because they do get things deducted into escrow accounts and stuff like that. So you do have to make sure that you're going to have some specialty accounts and income. You might have escrow income because they still got the money and they can get the money at any opportunity. They just didn't see it deposited into the account. So I tell you to take everything that comes through the bank account. You still have to make sure that you're not missing any other income that they would receive even if they didn't get physical cash for it. Okay. This is not one that we're going to do any invoices with for this specific industry, but we're going to go back through and do some of those, but we wouldn't really need to. You could, but it's not something that's needed. So now we've covered the reports, the manual, how you're seeing how it's kind of matching together here. So now let's go in and create an invoice. So I am going to create an invoice from the customer that looks like one of their settlement reports, just to give you an idea of some of the moving pieces that they have. So Metalark will come up. And then we are going to have, this is the week of 10/6. They get paid weekly. So we can say that this is Miles. And it looks like we're going to get 14.5%. We'll see if it'll let us do the percentage. Okay, so in order to do the percentage, it's not going to let me do a quantity, which doesn't do me any good. So we're going to do 1770.54. So I can change the rate and then I can change the quantity. So I would not recommend then putting the percentage in if we're going to do that. But I am going to go over here to 1770.54. And then our is going to be 0.145. So then it gives me the total number here. So you've got your total income here. So theirs is a little bit different because he's tracking these a little bit differently than most, but any industry, you're going to have your quirks on what you're trying to track and what you're not trying to track. So 2504.86 gives me that percentage. So now you've got a total invoice that he's getting I'm going to get on the 6th, so I can click save. And then if I want to go backwards here, I can edit this. I can void this, depending on what we're trying to do. If I hit cancel, I can revert it and bring it back. I can receive a payment against it. I'm going to clear this and not do that for right now. We're going to void this. So I can hit save and close. Okay. So now it's, you have a bill, but you don't have a bill, or an invoice because you don't have it. And then you would be able to accept the payment from the customers if they were doing it that way. To make sure that you keep your reports here, you're going to have customer and receivables, where you have your list of customers here, and then you'll have your payables as well. So create an invoice. Obviously, voiding the invoice, you can receive a payment from inside that invoice screen. Now, if you do an invoice, you send it out to a customer, and then it takes them a little bit to pay you back. You can go into customers and click receive payments. And then again, we can receive a payment. I can also receive, if somebody pays a credit, you would keep credits this way. So you're going to have that ability. And then, like I said before, you can have all sorts of payment ways that you get paid. Most people get paid probably by check or e-check or credit card. You could still select credit card and not have to type in anything for credit card. So don't be concerned that you wouldn't be able to do that. See here, I'm going to hit clear. And then we can go up here to customers. And again, you can create an invoice from here as well to do that. So you have those. Now, let me get out of these because, like I said, we've just been kind of stacking stuff on top of each other. There it goes. I'm going to bring back up our home page. So then let's do bills, because we obviously have quite a few bills as a trucker. So I'm going to enter some bills here. So some of our bills can be credit cards. They can be vendors. So he has a Super Fleet card. And that's a gas card, if you didn't know. And so his gas is averaging about $1,200 a month. And then we need to put an address in here. So the address they have for us . Okay, so we put in their address, and then this is obviously going to go into the fuel for hired vehicles. They can charge fuel income. So you can see there's a fuel surcharge, but this is an expense just for his truckers using the gas cards to keep the trucks on the road and keep them moving. So you could do this. We're going to hit save and new. He has a bill from us. And we're going to be under professional fees. So we can hit save and close. So then obviously when it's time to pay the bills, he can select the ones he wants to pay, and he can determine where he wants to pay them. So if he wants to use, so for the Super Fleet, Sometimes he'll pay it on the credit card to get the points, and then it'll default us over to the credit card options. But for me, he pays us directly out of the checking account. So it takes us to the checking account, and you can click Pay Selected Bills. And then I'm going to be done because we don't need to print. And then to show you kind of how that feeds into it, if we go back into the account here and go into our downloaded transactions, you can see well, it didn't match it. What is off with it? It didn't match my transaction, which it should have. But for some reason it didn't. So when you do the reconciliation, there's probably going to be a duplicate somewhere that we're going to have to pay attention to because something isn't right. It also has other things in here, like if I look under auto, like it has an IRS tax payment. That's bank of it going to the credit card. That seems a little funky. I doubt that that's the way this is, so this may not be right. So as you're going through it, you would probably want to pay attention to those. But if you look in your bank account here, you could see that we did pay this bill on 10/2. And obviously I don't want to print it, so I'm going to hit edit transaction and then click this so that it doesn't print. And you can hit save and close. You can also go, if you go to vendors and you pay your bills, instead of to be printed, you can assign it a check number. And you can say it's an auto payment. And then hit OK. And then you won't have to go in and change it. You won't have to change the account number there. It will just say auto pay in that box. So if we scroll up to find see here. See how it says auto pay? So I obviously use this go-to to search by check numbers. You can search by amounts. You can search by payee. I searched by the amount to find that transaction, knowing that there's probably no other transactions at $1,200. It's just an easy way to sift through, now that we're starting to have data in here, and find what you're looking for. Okay. So then if we go back to our home page here, we now want to write just some checks. So if you click onto here and you don't want to enter bills, you just need to write a couple checks. Maybe they're payroll checks because you do payroll by check instead of by direct deposit. And so you just want to make sure that you put your starting check number in properly. Okay. And then you do what it is. And you can hit print. You can do the batch. So if you hit save and new, and then this one, say we're going to do Superfleet again. You can print the batch. Oh, it didn't save it because we didn't have this box checked. So then let me click backwards to this one. This one. Okay. So as long as it says check later or print later, you can click the batch and then see how it has these here. And then if you don't need to print them, then you just uncheck it and then click save. But this box will stay the way you left it previously. So for example, if you have it checked, then it's going to check it. If you don't have it checked for the last thing you did, then it's going to do all the other ones and not have them checked either. So you just want to make sure that you know what it's doing. So see here, because if I go back one, this one said print later. If I change that and I hit save and close, and I go to write checks again, oh, it did come up and say print later. So it is on the default setting. which is nice because had you done, had you needed it, you'd had to, and you do a bunch of them, you'd have to go back and back and back, which would not be fun. So if you have the default setting, meaning we didn't change that setting, then it does look like it's going to stay there where it wasn't like that before. So now I'm trying to delete the super fleet check that I actually paid a bill with. So it tells me I can do this, but it's not a good idea. And I'm going to click OK. And then I'm immediately going to go up here to pay bills, where now this is, and I'm going to click go to the bill, and I'm going to delete it here. That way that I'm not paying it again. There's a reason I was trying to delete it. It either is wrong, doesn't, you know, whatever it is. So you just want to make sure that you follow some of those steps instantaneously. Okay. So then we go back over here to our chart of accounts, and now we need to create some new accounts here. So we're going to do a new expense. We're going to do wages, which is going to be a sub account of payroll expense. And then the company taxes. So those are the two accounts I want to see under payroll. Then we need to do, we have automobile expense. So we might actually want some sub accounts under here. There's truck maintenance cost, which could go under automobile expense. That's a cost of goods sold, which is accurate because they have to, the trucks only make money when you're driving them. But other than that, it looks like most of what he's going to have transaction-wise are probably already going to be in our chart of accounts, which is good. QuickBooks has done their research in order to determine what they think we'll need and what they don't think we'll need. Okay, so now let's go up here to the item list. And our mileage is the one here. So let's edit this item. And I want to change it to leave the rate as 0. That way it doesn't try to tell me something new. And then a new item we could have here is going to be a fuel charge, which is 50 cents a mile. And this will be fuel surcharge income. So now we've got that one in here. And then let's go over to our edit it and let's see our preferences. So our accounting here, our company preferences is that we do not do class tracking. This could change if he wanted to see what the profitability is on one of the trucks. And then obviously we want warnings for 20 days or 90 days in the past. The answer is yes, still, but I could uncheck that. And then obviously in the future. Our bill setting, they default to due 10 days after receipt. And then we want to look at our general transactions here. So it doesn't immediately go to decimals, which is perfect. You always want it to show. You know, you never want to see that. You want it logged off every time you do it because you don't want somebody to be able to do it and edit it. And then we have payroll and employees. We're not going to do payroll here. So I'm going to click no payroll to that one. And it's going to close everything behind. And I wanted to make sure that we saved that transaction for payroll. So we'll go back in here. And then let's do sales and customers. It's going to default to the packing slip, which is perfect because of what they're doing, but you might want it to default to one of these other ones. I have no sales tax right now, but if you charge sales tax, don't forget to turn it on here. Send forms, this is going to be one that's important. We definitely want to have an email in here. So we are good with this. And then let's do our company preferences. We want to do a webmail. We're going to add in here. Actually, I'm going to put his in here. Just just double check my. And he is a. So now it wants me to do the password, and I think this is the password. If this doesn't work, I'll do mine for training purposes, but okay. We're gonna do mine so that we know we can show you the full process here. So now you can see we're in here. So now if we go to customer, create an invoice, and then Metalark, we're going to do a fuel surcharge, 500 miles, they owe me $250. And then let's email this invoice, and then we can add Metalark's email address in here to be able to send that off, okay? Don't forget, you can also do attachments. Attachments play really well in the trucking industry. I have to do, you know, the fuel, the stop receipts. I have to scan in, you know, the sign-offs for when the product was delivered. You know, all that kind of stuff has to be sent over to Metalark in order for them to process my payments and know that I completed the job. That goes on top of all our all our transactions with our tracking on our trucks and stuff like that as well. So, you know, being specific that we're talking about that industry, you have a lot of that. I would have already scanned a bunch of this stuff in order to save it to it. And then obviously want to make sure that when I email, you email with the attached files once you've added the attached files. Okay. So don't forget that you can do that. And then we need to do some, let's go look at our banking, and then let's go into, let's go into our vendor center here. You can see the accounts that we've created with what we're doing. And you can see that we can show ones with open balances, which we don't have any right now, but so I just leave it on all vendors. So if we need to add a new vendor, you can enter a new vendor here, and let me find a new one that we have not added before. Here's one that everybody probably got. So the SBA EIDL. So that's funding that we got. Oh, if I could, let's edit this because I did not put these in the right spot. DL, instead I inverted it. Okay, so you obviously have the ability to edit this here. If you go into your customer center here, our only customer right now is Metalark. That is the only customer he's probably going to have, but we can edit this here. Make sure it's here, and you can fill out information, phones, those types of thing to make sure you're seeing it. If we go back up here to company and you go into my company, you can see we're missing an EIN in here. So we're going to want to obviously put that in. So we would click this little pencil guy. And put in our EIN here, and then click OK and add anything else we want to do in here. So I'll definitely need to enter the EIN. And I can click out of that. And then if you want to look at About My QuickBooks 2019, you get this little box here that if you ever lose your little paper or your printout that you have that says what your license number and product number are, it under the help thing, you have the information right here. So you can always take a screenshot of that, So you obviously want to make sure that you've got that. Anytime you're logged in, you're going to have it. Sometimes based on the device, the product number always stays the same, or the product number might shift a few digits, meaning that the last 3 might change. And that's how they monitor how many times you've installed it, because you only get up to 3 installs. So don't panic if on this computer it shows something different and then you look on your other device and it's a little bit different as well. Don't worry about that. You still have that. So then we also want to talk about backing our company up. So we're going to create a local backup. And I'm going to browse this and I'm going to go, let's go into my documents. We can save that here. And this is saving all our work, obviously, that we just did today. So we did a bunch of stuff today. And then we don't need to restore it at the moment, but we will go back through that. So let's go ahead and switch to multi-user mode. We've not created another user on the account yet, but we will. And it does take a minute for it to switch over. And I'm not sure, let's see here. Making sure it didn't pop up a box on another screen as it's still thinking. It doesn't normally take this long to switch over. Even, I mean, it is the first time and you can tell it's still thinking with like the blue spinning wheel there. I'm gonna try and end this since it seems to be not speaking. So let's go back into this, see if we can try this again. It wants me to set up a password, which is probably part of the problem. So I'm setting up a password. Okay, so then we're logged back in here. So now I'm going to try to switch to multi-user mode again. Let's give this one more shot. And this looks like it's going to work here. So it looked like the issue was because it had been a new account and it didn't have a password, it didn't want to switch over to multi-user mode. Then I set a password after kicking it out, and it obviously wants me to do that. So we want to create a user because we have not done that yet. It's going to ask for my password to secure this transaction. And then let's add a user here. He is the owner of the company, so he's going to have access to everything. So now you can see that I'm the admin and he's in here. And then if we wanted to add anybody else, we can do that. I'm going to go ahead and hit close. So we don't need to log over and log in as him because it's going to be the same type of access we have because he's the owner and we need to make sure that he had full access of everything. Okay. So you do have the ability to not, don't forget that you can trap whatever type of security that you want and everything like that. Now, we backed our company file up, but say you came and you went to your accountant and your accountant gave you the file back and said that we needed to import it because he had done some changes on that file for us. So you would need to restore your company file and you would restore a backup. And I'm going to restore this backup here, which is going to eliminate the changes we made with multi-user because that would not be in there. So now it's prompting me to do the password because it didn't have a password on this old file and it wants us to have one for security purposes. And then you pick a security question. And then it says I'm in multi-user mode and it wants to add somebody. So because I restored the previous file over the file that we had created the users, you can see how that would erase data. We obviously don't need to recreate that right now. I'll switch it to single user mode, but you can see how when you import a backup that it's going to override everything you did and there's no way to get it back. I mean, your IT people, I'm sure, could do something for you, but there's no way just in general that you could get it back without, creating some serious headaches. So it's really important that you back it up and you make sure you're working in the proper file every time you log into QuickBooks. Otherwise, you lose, we spent 10 minutes creating a user. You don't want to lose that 10 minutes you spent creating a user as it might be the first time that you're working with it. Okay. So this is pretty much everything that we had covered in the time of the course, and you got to see it used and worked with, and then obviously you're going to keep using it month after month or week after week with bills. So I'm going to open the floor up for any additional questions that we might have. And I know for this file that, like I said, they don't have sales tax, but just as a reminder, under vendors, when you turn sales tax on, you would have the ability for sales tax and then pay sales tax. And so I can show you, I'll flip it on just for training purposes for a second because we can turn that off. Yes, Chris, you can back up to a flash drive. That is correct. Where you, when you click the backup screen and then you get to where it says browse, just make sure you select your flash drive when you're on that screen and it will back it up onto that flash drive. So if you go up here to vendors, let's go create an invoice that has sales tax first. Let's see here. Oh, it didn't save. So it's not gonna let me do the sales tax. There it goes. It's doing the where it closes everything. So now if you go up to vendors, you have your sales tax option and you would pay your sales tax and look at the liability. Remember, the liability gives you a report here. You still have to pay it from sales tax to pay sales tax here, which gives you this window here to make sure you're selecting and adjusting properly so that your sales tax numbers stay accurate month after month or semi-annual after semi-annual. Okay. And then like this client, if you charge sales tax and then realize you didn't need it or you make a transition, you could just click into here and say no. And then now it's not an option here. So, you know, see the things you want to see, but not the things you don't have to type of thing. So just wanted to remind everybody of that. And again, it does not pay it in the gateway from here. You have to pay that separately. So just remember that. Any other questions, guys? I'm going to put my contact information in one last time for you. Feel free to reach out. You have my phone number and my email address. You know, do not hesitate. I know we were just talking, we're going to run some classes again, maybe in the spring after we get through April's tax deadline, give you guys some time. So if you feel like you need a refresher at that point, I'm sure that, you know, they'd be happy to see you in, but, you know, don't hesitate to ask any questions. And then you've got your PowerPoints to hang on to, use them. I call them my little crutch to make sure that if I forget something that I don't do very often, sales tax would be one thing, or as you guys are reconciling, that would be another. You don't do them very often, but once a month. So the first few months you might be a little rusty. So keep them, use them. You know, I take a lot of time to build those, so I'm really excited to be able to share it and you guys to have that crutch to help answer questions along the way. I'll hang out just a few more minutes, guys, before we jump off in case there are any other questions. But if you don't have anything at this time, you are welcome to jump off. Deanna, do you have anything that the SBDC wanted to add at the end of this?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for attending.
Chris, the section does not, you can print or email a 1099, the print form here. I usually just tell people to email it or have copies in your office because even if you email it to them, they can't fill out the information. It doesn't automatically put it into QuickBooks. So you still have to put it into QuickBooks, and that goes under your vendor center. When you get into a vendor and you want to click this pencil, you can put in their address and then their tax setting is where their EIN would go. Because it tells you like print or email, but then there's nowhere for it to actually email. So you still have to do that kind of manually. You're welcome. Perfect, guys. Well, you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And if you need anything, my contact information's above, or feel free to reach out to Deanna or Steve, and they will be happy to make sure that we get connected. You guys have a great day.